morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it is the 16th day of April 2025. And welcome to our show today. We're going to have on Liberty Essentials, and then Greg Martini is going to be on at 10 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about lawful notices and serving notices to our public functionaries, which we need to be doing and active in. Right now, I gotta fix something here a minute, but right now I'm going to invite on both Ralph and Karen, and we're going to be talking about, I did something wrong this morning, so we're going to just have to replace something. So you guys start talking here a minute so that I can get something corrected.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Senate Bill 111 this morning.
Yes, I do. And here, hang on a minute. I had this going to the wrong X account. So welcome in everybody from the Donna Brandenburg X account right now, because I had the wrong one clicked on. So we had to get that up so that we can invite our friends in here. So yeah, Senate Bill 111. So it's, what is it? MGR. Which one is it? It's MIGRO.
MCRGO.
MCRGO. Okay. I wish they had a way to put this into a pronounceable word, but they don't.
Yep.
So,
Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners.
There you go. So, but we want to talk about this because what they have done is they're trying to expand these red flag laws again. And I don't know if people really understand how much usurpation is actually going on and how they're actually doing this. They did the same thing with the Patriot Act in 9/11. Anybody signs these red flag laws, they're committing treason, okay? And I'm not backing down from this. Not for one little red second should we back down from this.
Well, and they are directly against the Constitution, which they should have sworn an oath to uphold.
Well, they're going against their oath right now. So here's a warning to any of you that are voting on this. You are dangerously close to being able to be tried for treason. And there's going to be some of us that are not backing down on this. So make my day, because I would just love to actually file another lawsuit on this, but it would be better for you and probably all of us if you just do the right thing. So we're gonna talk about legal precedent on this a minute, and then talking about the Second Amendment violations, as well as lack of due process, as well as what the heck. Why do you keep going back there to disarm the population of America? I go ahead and speak on this a second, and I'm going to continue to get things going here this morning because this is nuts.
So basically, to kind of summarize from what I understand of the consequences of SB 111, if passed, the idea is so on the surface, it's about protecting vulnerable adults from exploitation. And so it's basically taking, they're peddling it as protecting especially the elderly. But the mechanism for that is that adults who may or may not be in that vulnerable category can basically take a PPO out, a personal protective order, file that against pretty much anyone, and have all of their gun rights stripped from them without cause, without trial, basically without anything. And they don't even have to necessarily have any kind of a relationship to that person.
It's just an accusation. So you can have your rights completely destroyed by an accusation by anyone who perhaps just doesn't agree with you or like you. That's what it comes down to.
Yep.
So I'm going to read it, and we're going to start with the Second Amendment violation protocol. Remember, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary. It's the only amendment that says necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, they're infringing them. They've already infringed them, okay? But this is a bigger infringement, and it's much more insidious. The bill allows a court to issue a personal protection order that could result in the seizure of firearms based on a petitioner's belief that an individual may own or purchase a firearm without requiring evidence of a specific threat, criminal act, or mental health crisis. So they can just say, this person's crazy. They're done right there.
Or even just, I don't like them.
I don't like them. They make me feel unsafe.
They might legally own a firearm.
Yeah. So this effectively restricts the right to bear arms without compelling evidence based on justification. So now I'm going to give you some legal precedent. The District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008, the Supreme Court affirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess firearms for self-defense, unconnected to military service. Restrictions on this right must be narrowly tailored and justified by a significant government interest. New York State Rifle and Pistol Associations versus Bruin 2022, the court clarified that gun control measures must align with historical tradition of firearm regulation. SB 111's preemptive seizure based on vague standards lacks historical grounding and fails the Bruin test. So, argument for defeat. By allowing firearm confiscation without clear evidence of danger, SB 111 infringes on the fundamental right to bear arms, violating the Second Amendment. The bill's low evidentiary threshold risks punishing law-abiding citizens, which is not a constitutionally permissible restriction. The Fifth Amendment, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. 14th Amendment, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The issue of 111, the bill permits PPOs to be issued based on minimal evidence, not requiring a direct relationship with the respondent and relying on subjective claims about potential firearm ownership or vague notions of vulnerability. This could lead to deprivation of constitutional rights, which that's kind of the bad term, but we're going to use it here. Gun ownership without adequate procedural safeguards, such as robust hearing or clear evidentiary standards. More legal precedent. Matthews versus Eldridge is due process requires balancing the individual interest, the risk of erroneous deprivation, and the government's interest. Zedvadas versus Davis, the Supreme Court has emphasized that vague standards in laws affecting liberty interests are constitutionally suspect. Broad language risks arbitrary enforcement. There are so many. I've got so many pulled up here that it's not even funny. And so I actually generated a letter. I actually put together a letter this morning that we need to be reaching out to our senators by saying, not just no, but hell no. And that if they violate our rights, if they move into complete usurpation of our rights, guess what? We're going to start suing these people on individual bases. And as I've been doing right now, though you'll never hear about it because, God forbid this should hit the media, we're going to censor. And the people that should be speaking out about this are being distracted by every crazy thing on the planet instead of sticking to the lawful precedent and the actions that we need to take. Okay, so as the chairman of the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan, we're going to continue to focus this into what we need to, which is actionable steps, as well as bringing forward the truth in what's actually going on here, because we are truly being distracted. I'm going to go into a couple more things here just for a minute, and then we'll talk about it. Second Amendment, the bill lets a judge take away someone's guns just because someone else thinks they might own them. without proof of any danger. The Constitution says our right to bear arms can't be taken away so easily. It's a fundamental freedom, and the Supreme Court has backed this up in cases like Heller and Bruin. Remember, there's cases out there, stare decisis law, that they may not do this just because somebody decides, oh, I think we're going to just go and punch we the people in the face once again and beat them with unconstitutional usurpations in our opinion. The Constitution guarantees, so we're going to go to due process. The Constitution guarantees that no one can lose their rights without fair process. SB 111 lets people file complaints with little evidence, and a judge could strip someone's freedoms without giving them a proper chance to defend themselves. That's not how justice works in America. Vagueness. The bill's rules are so vague that almost anyone could be targeted for owning a gun or bearing or being near a vulnerable person, whatever that means. Vague laws like this invite abuse and punish innocent people, which courts have struck down before. So imagine you're a law-abiding gun owner and a distant relative or neighbor files a complaint because they don't like guns or they don't like you. SB 111, a judge could take your firearms without proof you did anything wrong. That's not just unfair, it's unconstitutional. Think about how this could affect an elderly person who owns a gun for self-defense. Someone could complain that they're vulnerable, get a PPO, stripping their rights without even having a real hearing. It goes into the administrative process, and we have a real problem with this. Broader implications are, if we let this bill pass, it sets a precedent for taking away other rights based on flimsy claims. Today, it's guns to what could be free speech or privacy, which all of them are under attack, every single one of them. The Constitution exists to protect us from this kind of usurpation. So we really need to talk about this, and I've got all kinds of cases that supports this, and really we need to be addressed. We need to lodge legal challenges. We have to have public advocacy for this, as well as engage our legislators. And I'm going to try not to slam my phones down. Karen told me this morning that whenever I get, riled up about things, I put my extra phones down that I've got notes on and such. And sorry about that, but it's just the way it is.
Well, and the broad overreach of this is something that I would expect out of pro-Second Amendment people trying to pass a law specifically to get it shot down by the courts so that something like that could never happen again due to case law. I don't think that's what's happening in this case. I think it's actually just more or less such extremism that we've gotten to the point of farce. But it's the kind of thing that I would expect if it weren't for that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I would say that if this passes, that, considering that anytime we go to any of these political events anymore, we have to go through metal detectors and stuff and not carry firearms, that makes us vulnerable adults to any of these security guards and such that are surrounding all of these politicians when they're doing their speeches. So, we are therefore the vulnerable party in that case. And, we might want to think about the fact that we're in fact threatened by both our politicians as well as their security detail.
Well, and think about this. The biggest problem we have is that when they go after one right, they're going to go after all of them. They have already proven to be murderers, liars, cheats, and thieves. And I'm just going to say it, and I've said it before. The political parties which dominate our political landscape right now, they're a threat. They're a national security threat. If any of these people on either side of the aisle had any intention to do the right thing, they would have. And this just proves that they are uneducated idiots, puppets of the deep state, and every single one of them needs to be removed and tried for treason. It's still there. This is not just because we got new people in. The new people, they're doing the same thing, the same way they did it, not protecting our rights. Let's just see who steps up to this. Let's see. Let's look into the future a little bit. Oh, I predict none of them.
I just love the way you went from let's look into the future. I predict. I mean, that was so hard, wasn't it?
It was so hard, It's like everybody wants. I've had so many people that want me to run for governor again. I've been announced that I'm running for governor by both the Republican Party and several parties and several things, and it's really kind of amusing to me, right? And so I'm so amused by this, but I'm just kind of like scratching my head on this. And I can tell you right now that both the Republican Party and the Democrat parties are a threat to this nation. They are a complete illusion of protecting our rights. They're not doing it. They've gone after President Trump, the rightful president of the United States. They went after him and refused to stand with him as he was thrown to the wolves and fought this alone with his attorneys. There were parties silent as the grave. They were not out there fighting. Oh yeah, you get a headline once in a while. You get a headline where somebody's, oh, isn't this terrible? They're after President Trump. Where's the action? Nada.
I have some thoughts. I'm going to go back to something that Ralph had said. There was a point in time where Muskegon County wanted to pass a county, was it city? Anyway, it was a leash law included in some other factors. Well, if you want to train your dog well, at some point you have to take it off leash. There's a process for that. You start with a short leash when you're teaching the introduction of the commands. And then you go to something like 15 foot, which is like a perfect step up. You work your way up to 15 feet so that you still have control. And then you can go on a long line, which is a lighter weight, something like a paracord, let's say. So, and maybe even a lighter line, like a braided mason line. So the dog doesn't know how long the line is and can consider running off or something like that. But you could step on the line. You can still get a hold of the dog. You can still correct it for violation of the command, for failure to recall, etc. But that's not on a leash. A 15-foot line may be construed as not on a leash, depending on the law. If it says 6-foot leash, well, how are you supposed to adequately, responsibly train your dog so that if it does escape your yard and you call, you know that your dog can come back? If you've trained it well, yeah, you can do that. Well, not just pet dogs need to be trained in this way, ideally. You also need to have service dogs whose handlers may become completely disabled and not capable of managing a dog, and police dogs, which work off leash sometimes. Well, they didn't include a provision in the law to exclude police dogs. Oh, so you have to have all dogs on a 6-foot leash? You might want to rethink that. So I took this to the commission, to the board, whatever it was, and I said, you have a problem here. How about I rewrite it for you? I've got this phrase, and I got this from a mentor of mine that I had taken it to because he had experience in dog law more than I had, and he helped me write it up. A leash or lead of adequate length for exercise or training. So that at least in the city limits, you could go to a public park and you could work your dog safely without a 6-foot leash. And even the police dogs could do that. But I don't know that they add in an exception for police dogs, what they should have. They don't always think about the what ifs, and Ralph just gave him a really good what if scenario, and I kind of Ralph, don't tell them that, because now they're going to scratch it off and edit it before they try to pass it. Yeah, he made a good point on that Donna Brandenburg show. But I want to also go back to, let's look at the foundation a little bit here. The Constitution is about what the government is allowed to do. It governs the government.
It's a constraint.
Then there was a lot of debate at the time. People forget that. There was a lot of debate about the Constitution. And some of the founders wrote anonymously, so they were the first anons in the country, to focus the attention on the opinions of the matter rather than who wrote them. And they anonymously wrote a whole bunch of papers about the Constitution, and a lot of them said it's not enough. We want protection specifically on these certain topics to protect the people's rights. Yes, they're God-given rights. We shouldn't have had to write them down, just like we shouldn't have needed more than the 10 Commandments in the beginning, but they were rejected by the people. So let's put some specifics on paper. They're not called the amendments when they were first passed. They're called the Bill of Rights, and they're described as articles on the header in the original document. They're not called First and Second Amendment, for example. They're called First and Second Article. So they're a separate entity, a separate document that is supposed to make very clear to the government, you shall not touch these things. We don't need case law. It just isn't, or it is. Just like, what's the case? What's the case? If it's unconstitutional, it doesn't exist, right?
Norton versus Shelby County.
So in a sense, you could just kind of ignore this law. But then, of course, we end up in court because we have to prove all of this matter. We have to go through the effort and expense to prove to the government that you've crossed the line. Now, how ridiculous is this? That's their job, is to read those two documents and say, oh, I don't have that authority. Period. End of story. And then I guess I'll stop there. I could go further, but I'll
you know
yield.
what? No, to your point. So the state of Michigan accused me of something, and I was supposed to provide him with something, and I'm like, I'm not going to even answer this. And it's sort of like poking the bear a little bit. Go ahead and try to sue me, because this was an unsubstantiated, and somebody called and said, you need to challenge this, and this is why it's a bad law, it's a bad thing. And I'm like, I'm going to sit here just as comfy as I'll get out. And if they come after me on this, I'm going to probably sue somebody on this one, because it was an accusation from the state without proof or legal basis. So basically what they did is they just plugged something in and grouped me in with a whole bunch of other people, but nobody checked it. So they just sent it at me. So I'm just going to sit here and watch them fail.
Yeah.
And then once they fail, guess what? Bring it, and I mean bring it to them in a lawful, legal manner. Nobody gets stupid on me. But I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, we have got to start knowing the law, not being afraid of this, and figure out how to do this without the complicit attorneys, which are part of the bar, which is not a license to practice law. Even our Constitution says you have the right to counsel, not a barred attorney. So what's counsel? Define that for me. You can't do it.
So another possibility for a way to go about this, if they manage to sign it into illegal law, yet another thing that you could do is there are certain firearm related things which require an extra tax stamp currently, and they such as a safety device such as a suppressor for preventing damage to ears. If, for example, someone happened to be threatened by someone that has the tax stamps for a whole bunch of these NFA regulated items, then there would also be a federal case to be filed for potentially a refund of the NFA tax stamp fees for to compensate for the seizure of these items, as well as the value of the collector's firearms that many of these people have. And the aggregate value of all of that stuff would have to be, per the Constitution, given back to the owner of them, which would give a very strong legal argument for some pretty hefty damages for a suit. So, just a couple of ideas for potential lawsuits if this goes through, for perhaps someone to file.
Well, I'm going to give a challenge to everybody out there, because I'm seeing how many people are on that are watching this right now. It's like, you want to do something, pass this information on, which we're putting out this morning to get people to join us. Sitting there and just twiddling our thumbs is not working. We need to have an army of digital soldiers who are willing to address this and get it out there in front of people. They're not going to do it. They are literally suppressing everything. When I watch how they're suppressing all of the videos and all of the links and such, they're still suppressing things. And it's going to require us to be the news, to pass this on, to take the time to say, we got a problem and we need to address this.
I would recommend that, if, for example, there was a neighbor to a firearms store, a single owner firearms store, that happened to be pro Second Amendment and happened to be friends with the owner of the firearms store, I would tend to think that neighbor might potentially be threatened by the fact that the firearms store owner owns firearms, and therefore the entire stock of the store needs to be seized and the owner's business completely shut down. In which case,
they're going to do that. That's the part of the strategy.
Well, the great thing about that, though, is that this could be done proactively by someone who actually wanted to, show the absurdity of this law, to basically force the government to then pay for all of the firearms, ammunition, any firearm-related items, the entire business, all of that kind of thing, for basically to compensate that owner. And that could those damages could potentially rack up to something absolutely astronomical, particularly if there was a suit for treble damages for cost to reputation, loss of business, loss of income, damage, personal damages, financial damages, for exceeding the bounds of the Constitution. So, just a thought.
I see where you're going with this, but I just think it's better just to reach out to the senators and say, if you go there, we will be holding you accountable to this, and you signed that bill. You have signed the basis of yourself being tried for treason.
Your sacred honor.
Your sacred honor. You have literally signed on to something which is absolutely and should be and will be tried for treason. It's wrong. So
Yep.
One of the other things that I have here, hang on a minute.
I think there's multiple ways of doing this. We got to have a multi-pronged approach to this of go after it now, go after it later in a different way, and show that we are not going to be trampled on ever.
Well, I've got a letter here that I'm going to read this letter, unless you don't want me to. I guess I could stop. But I have a letter that I'm going to post to my social media accounts. And you can do what you want with this, but I would suggest that this might be the verbiage that you want to use preemptively to contact your senators. I'm writing as a concerned constituent to urge you to vote against Senate Bill 111, SB 111, due to its clear violations of the U.S. Constitution and its threat to the liberties of Michiganders. That was for you, Karen. While the bill aims to protect vulnerable adults, its overly broad and vague provisions undermine fundamental rights, particularly those protected by the 2nd, 5th, and 14th Amendment. First, SB 111 infringes on the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The bill allows a court to issue a PPO that could result in firearm confiscation based solely on a petitioner's belief that an individual may own or purchase a firearm without evidence of a specific threat or wrongdoing. The U.S. Supreme Court in District of Columbia versus Heller 2008 and New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin 2022 has affirmed that such restrictions on gun ownership may be narrowly tailored and historically justified. SB 111's low evidentiary threshold fails this constitutional standard, punishing law-abiding citizens and undermining core freedom. So we threw that in there just as a kind of a gimme to them, right? But it's not. I mean, it's a clear violation of these amendments, period. End of story. Second, the bill violates due process protections under the 5th and 14th Amendment by permitting PPOs based on minimal evidence and expanding who can petition without requiring a direct relationship to the respondent. SB 111 risks depriving individuals of their constitutional rights without a fair hearing or clear justification. The Supreme Court's ruling in Matthew versus Eldridge, 1976, emphasizes that due process requires robust safeguards to prevent erroneous deprivations of liberty or property. The bill's vague standards and lack of procedural rigor fall short of this requirement, inviting arbitrary enforcement. Finally, the bill's overly broad and ambiguous language, such as undefined terms like vulnerable adult or exploitation, what does that even mean, right? Could chill lawful behavior, including gun ownership, and lead to abuse of PPO's process. Courts have struck down similar laws for vagueness as seen in Granted versus City of Rockford 1972 because they failed to provide clear guidance and risk punishing innocent conduct. Michigan has a proud history of defending constitutional liberties, as demonstrated by the unanimous passage of Senate Bill 94 in 2014 to oppose unconstitutional federal overreach. We're going to call it usurpation. SB 111, however, moves in the opposite direction by threatening the rights of your constituents. As a voter, I respectfully try to be respectful. That's all we got to say. Ask you to uphold your oath to the Constitution and vote against this bill when it reaches the Senate floor. Instead, I encourage you to support legislation that protects vulnerable adults through clear, evidence-based measures that respect due process and constitutional freedoms. I will be happy to discuss this further, and thank you for your attention. So this is all about how to do an actionable step instead of just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, going, oh, whatever shall I do, and that sort of thing, and reaching out. So I will put this in my Telegram channel at Brandenburg, the number 4MI, as well as on Twitter. Do with it as you see fit. But I would encourage you to reach out to your senators today. I think they're supposed to be voting on this today, and let them know exactly how you feel about public functionaries who commit treason and sign their name to legislation which amounts to treason. So there we go.
And if you think that it's harmless because no one would possibly use this against me, consider the fact that I believe I believe at this point the youngest person that they have filed against for the red flag laws, I believe the youngest person was 6 years old, to remove their ability to have a firearm. A 6-year-old kid. Now, that wasn't for the 6-year-old. That was so that they could take the firearms of the responsible parents who had no justification for having anything taken away by the red flag laws. So, if you think they aren't going to use this for collateral damage, they've already proven a track record of using it specifically for collateral damage.
They're untrustworthy. They've already proven a track record of absolutely being lawless, communal fascists who don't give a rip about our rights or the rights of other people in America. And they use these pretended laws and pretended legislation in order for them to basically, through their unlawful invasion of the United States, to absolutely disable Americans. And I'm going to just say it. We have to step up and do something. Please, please feel free to contact me. I put my number out there. If you want to get in the game here with us and actually fight for our rights and do something instead of going to these ridiculous political party fundraisers, to have a fundraiser, to have another fundraiser, to have another fundraiser, and have another fundraiser. I see no point in this anymore. We have to be working and doing something. The talking's got to come to an end, and the action has to happen. Lawful action. Don't get stupid on me and do, grab your torches and pitchforks and that sort of thing. We've got the law on our side, and the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah, and the red flag laws too are also an unconstitutional deprivation of rights. They just haven't found the right person to go after to enact that again, who would actually take them to court and nullify the laws for unconstitutionality. Or if they have, those suits are still being held in secret.
I can guarantee you, anyone that signs that legislation is going to face prosecution. Because we, the people, are not going to put up with this anymore. And it's time to legally go after these people and basically use lawfare to absolutely stop their attack on America. We're in a war right now. We're definitely in a war. And they're using irregular warfare. We can say that it's not been a kinetic war, but that's a lie. It is a kinetic war. They're just using useful idiots to continue to increase the chaos and stuff. What was it? There was a guy that I'm not going to go there with quoting it entirely, but there was a guy that stabbed another guy recently. His family took the money from the Give, Send, Go and bought a new house with it for the perpetrator of the crime. Nothing like paying back someone for killing another human being. I think it's disgusting, and every single one of us should just be saying, hold the phone. You literally raised money for the family of the murderer.
Well, and that goes.
I don't get it.
That goes back to something that I've had to explain to a few people lately. Is all of the beggars that are on the highway exits. I can, most of them are scammers basically, and that I think if I remember right, the average yearly income for a beggar is something like twice that, I think, of
60,000 is what I heard.
It's like, it's about 60,000, and on top of it, many of them do not pay taxes on that income.
I'm going to guarantee you none of them pay taxes. That's 60,000, and so what does that equate in a normal salary for people? Let's just add the normal taxes, not the ones that are real taxes, but add 30% to that. You got an $80,000 to $90,000 income out of sitting there trying to look pathetic. When in case, we had an experience that really was crazy. There's this guy, we're coming out of a restaurant, there's this guy, and he's sitting in a wheelchair, and he's doing his best shaking move and this, that, and the other thing, right? And of course, I'm not going to give a beggar money, because there's plenty of things out there where they can get help if they need it. No one in the United States right now, with all the money being funneled into all of these NGOs, have a reason to go without. Okay, so coming out of the restaurant, all of a sudden noticed that the guy is up and he's packing up his wheelchair, And all of a sudden, he sprints down the alley. Mr. Shaky does a sprint that could have probably put an Olympian to shame. Gets to the bus stop, pulls a flask of vodka out of his pocket, starts guzzling the vodka as he goes up the stairs onto the bus, like Biden falling up the stairs on a Air Force One. He gets up like a gazelle and runs. Don't
Nice.
believe the patheticness, guys. I mean, this is all, there's so many actors out there and they're just out there to take your money. Somebody
Yep.
comes to you from a political party, keep your money. Tell them to go pound sand.
But
Find
much like
something actionable you can do by yourself.
much like the give, send, go thing for buying that mansion, for a criminal, and his family, much like that, I kind of consider the begging situation to be a lot the same, in that, yes, I lay some of the blame for the begging industrial complex. I do blame the beggars to a certain extent, but far more than them, I blame the stupid people that enable that, because the beggars are there meeting a demand. The beggars are there as an acting career, really. That is their occupation, is being an actor. And it pays more than a lot of acting jobs that are out there. So to a certain extent, from a rational point of view, can you blame the beggar? If they, leaving aside the moral aspects of it, can you blame the beggar?
Oh yeah, I can blame the beggar and the people giving him money.
Yeah, there's some blame there, but I put far more of the blame on the stupid people enabling that lifestyle and enabling that tax evasion and enabling all of that whole thing there would not exist if people were not stupid about things. I'm not saying homelessness doesn't exist. I'm not saying there aren't people out there that are in trouble and need help and that sort of thing. But by golly, if you're going to help someone, go find someone that actually needs help and help them in more than just a token of here's $1. Go do something that they actually need. Find someone that actually needs help, that
Invest in their lives. And
yes.
It should never be a fleeting thing. It should be something, if you're going to help somebody, you need to be there for them on many levels. And just throwing somebody a little cash to assuage our guilt that we're not doing anything, or to make us feel superior to another human being, that's not okay.
Yep.
That is not okay. If you really care about people, you get in and you help them. Jesus said it very well, and and he lived it. Jesus lived this. But I want you to think about this. If you really care about people, you're not just going to give them. You're not going to give them a fish. You're going to teach them to fish. Jesus didn't say that, but I'm going to expand on it. Right? You're going to teach that person to have those skills. There's been so many times that younger people have come to me as I'm interviewing them or talking them for jobs and such, or the people that have worked for me, and they're like, I don't know how to be an adult. And I'll never forget the one conversation I had with a gal named Becky. She's like, I'm 18 years old. All my friends and I are scared. We don't know how to be an adult. We don't know how to do what you are able to do. And I'm like, I get it. You've been abandoned. The education system is nothing more than indoctrination to be little social justice warriors and to create the and to carry out the color revolution going on, the cultural war. But just to live has been completely destroyed. How many people know how to balance a checkbook? How many people? I can tell you this because I own a lot of real estate. To watch people move in who are young adults, they have no idea how to deal with utilities, how to deal with trash, how to maintain any sort of order or discipline in their lives, or even have purpose. They kind of meander around. They struggle with
People are scared
anything.
to call a doctor to make a doctor's appointment.
Yes. Yep.
And
Or the people that have emotional support dogs. I'm going to tell you what, this is one of the, as an animal lover who rescues animals, who rescues horses and dogs, this is one of the dumbest things that they've instituted. And the reason being is that the people can't even take care of themselves. You think they're going to take care of an animal? The animals end up being abused. I can give you concrete examples of what happens when you give somebody who's already mentally ill an animal who can't take care of themselves. The animals aren't taken care of. We've seen animals that are shoved in small cages that never get out and live in absolute squalor. You call, animal protection of some sort, and they won't do a thing about it. We had one place where somebody came in with an emotional support animal. We had to call somebody in to repair a water heater, right? The guy that went down there was so much dog crap on the floor in the basement that the man slipped and fell trying to get to the water heater.
nice.
And of course, as a landlord, you have limited rights to go in there, and it's not your responsibility, first of all, it's the tenant's rights, but to go in there and rectify things like that, like their own squalor, because they're so immature, self-centered, lost, and mentally ill. It's mental illness that they will not even take care of an animal. So now you got a compound problem by having somebody who's already mentally ill, spreading it to animal abuse and the abuse of the people around them. Are you kidding me? We're still not getting to the base level problem. Same thing with dealing with the red flag laws, which we were talking about. Why don't we talk about the real issue, like lawlessness on our streets? If we return to law and order, okay, you're gonna be absolutely identifying the threats and or prosecuting people who break the law. Pretty soon after there's actual consequences to actions, problem's going to be solved.
Well, and much like how I mentioned earlier that this is the kind of thing that SB 111 is the kind of thing that I would expect pro Second Amendment people to pass just to get case law. With the emotional support animal thing, I absolutely love the people that decided to bring like an emotional support turkey onto a plane or an emotional support horse, because it's those kinds of people that can demonstrate the utter absurdity of some of this kind of stuff. And a lot of times that's the only way to get people to wake up anymore, because they are so blind to the consequences of their own actions that you almost have to have someone that can take those consequences to their natural, logical, inevitable conclusions just to prove how stupid the entire premise is.
Well, here's a gimme for everybody out there. Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners, they do a real good job with their communication and keeping up on the bills that are going through our Michigan legislature.
If nothing else, join their newsletter.
Join the newsletter. Help get in the fight with these guys to protect our rights, because they have been unwavering to protect the rights of the people of the state of Michigan and raise the awareness of it. I kind of decided with this thing coming up that this is something I'm going to do as chairman of the Constitution Party here, is put out some more notifications of these usurpations that they're doing. But I'm kind of busy here, just in case anybody hasn't noticed. But so we could use some help. So if you want to join us too, and let me throw ours up there. Put my phone number out there. Everybody that's here that's listened for a short bit of time will know that. Okay, and our website sucks. Okay, I'm in the middle of this, of redoing the website. But you know what? Come here and join us. it's not an expensive thing to join us, but you don't have to join us, but at least join us. But the only way to communicate with you is effectively is if you sign up for our newsletters, which we're making robust. We're gonna end up building this out a little bit better, and we've got a lot of initiatives going forward. But you don't have to join us either. That's the thing, is that I've made it pretty clear that we will not be taking dark money or PAC money. We would love to have an army of digital soldiers out there who will actually do something with us and help us try to hold accountable. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Republican Party is doing nothing, silent as the grave. Okay. The Republican Party is broken into 3 subsets in the state of Michigan. They're all fighting. How are we, being ununited in the Republican Party, how are they ever going to have any impact? And it was
divided against itself.
And the Republican Party was singularly responsible for putting Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer in office. They are funded by an oligarch cartel headed by the DeVosses. The DeVosses pulled the funding on their candidate, Tudor Dixon, right after she won the primary, and immediately had a secret meeting, sort of secret, but we all know about it now, with the oligarchs who fund and buy our politicians in this state, and started a group called Republicans for Whitmer. They are solely responsible for a second term of Whitmer. And if anybody thinks that that's going to change, they've now got the Republican Party divided into 3 different factions who will not get along, who will not work together, and will not do anything measurable except for sit there and argue things that don't matter and raise money to raise money to raise money to raise money.
House divided against itself. But yeah, definitely sign up for the MCRGO newsletter, because that newsletter is amazing. And
we have no other connections to them other than the fact that we like what they do. We don't get paid for anything. We don't get paid for promoting anything. We have taken in not one dime for doing BNN. Personally, we've taken in not one dime. None of us have.
And I mean, I'm a big fan of that organization. Just, if look into them, and if you, like I do, find them valuable, then maybe think about joining. But at the very, very least, even if you don't want to join their group, at least sign up for their newsletter.
Yeah, I think it's free too. I don't think you have to. You can sign up for the USTPM, the Constitution Party in Michigan, United States Taxpayers Party, which hopefully we'll get to change our name here if things happen with the Secretary of State, who is a traitor and who has committed treason and has threatened Americans and has violated campaign finance laws and put everything behind a paywall. Yes, this is going to change. But
I believe the Taxpayers Party newsletter sign up is just right at the bottom of the homepage.
Here, let's go there and look at that in a minute. Here, we're going to try to make it easy for you guys. Yeah. And let's see, we've got all kinds of things. You can actually run your office with us.
I can tell you from being on that list too, that stuff doesn't come up on there very often. It's not like something you're going to get all kinds of spam from joining this. Same thing with the MCRGO newsletter. It's not a spam thing. It's you get pertinent, tailored newsletter emails from that, infrequently, but when needed.
Well, and I'm getting to figure out how to be a chairman. I've only been the chairman of the party for a short period of time, and it's one of those things. You don't know how to do something, jump in, you'll figure it out. God will lead you through it, and even if you make mistakes, you keep moving and refuse to quit. And then it's amazing how much you learn just by jumping into the pond, figuring things out. So our next guest is going to be on, Greg Martini, and talk about jumping into the pond. I'm going to get into another area that I know some about. I've been watching what the people that are around Dave Jose have done, and I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that we've got a group of doers, not just talkers. And I'm reaching out to every single one of them to help educate me, and also that we can come alongside each other and work together. We're working on the same side. And so it's like I'm all in on this. I think this is great. I think they've got something, and I really want to have Greg explain it, because I'm gonna screw it up. Okay, I don't know enough about this. I know some about writing notices to our public functionaries. We all know that they're not officials; they're public functionaries, so that we hold them accountable and we do those actionable steps to do that and have recourse to hold them accountable. That's the one thing that's missing. We're missing accountability, and on every level of our government. So they just do what they want. They're just like, say whatever you want. We don't care about you, we the people. You're just in our way. We're going to do what we think we're going to do anyway, and you're just going to have to suck it up.
Yep. Not we the people, you the people versus us once they get
And
into office.
Them the traitors.
Yep.
Well, let's go that way. You know, if you guys want to stay on with Greg for a little bit, I think this could be really a fun way to approach this, just for a little bit. If you have other things to do, I know, Ralph, you're real super busy today. We can do that too. But I'd like to give Greg his spot in the sun here for a little bit. So I'm going to throw you guys backstage. If you want to come back out, I'll bring you guys on later. Okay?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to get going. But
see, this is the deal, guys. We're actually real friends and know each other very, very well. And I'm going to tell you, there are no finer people on the planet than Karen, Ralph, and Bill, who right now is trying to get his house with a new baby in shape to accommodate his little tribe going on there. So, but there are no finer people. I know them personally, and can tell you that they're honest, they're for real, and I'm very proud to stand with you guys. So with that said, boys and girls, we're going to go to a little bit of a 1-minute break here, and I'll be right back with Greg. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 16th day of April 2025, and welcome to our show today. I am going to bring Greg Martini in. He has one of the coolest resumes that I've read in a long time. It is very long, and I'm going to let him introduce himself because there's a lot of legitimacy here, and I don't want to screw it up. So, morning, Greg. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thank you for having me on your show, Donna.
Oh, thank you for reaching out to me and such. You know, there's so many wonderful people in your group and in the group of people that follow Dave Jose that actually have gotten in and have done some heavy lifting, know the law and know their rights. And I really would like to know more about this. And I appreciate you educating me, because I'm kind of all over the place with a lot of different issues, and I try to get educated on everything. So I think this is my time to really dive in here, because as you know, I've been filing lawsuits and that sort of thing. And I don't care which way we win. I just want to win, and the best idea wins. So please introduce yourself to everyone, and let's just dive into this.
Certainly. My name is Greg Martini. I started in the finance business. I am a licensed CFA, Charter Financial Analyst. I was a Series 7, Series 63 registered rep. I worked in investments and finance for over 35 years. I saw during that time frame lots of different lawsuits, lots of actions, both plaintiffs and defendants. And I realized something was amiss with our not only financial system, but our legal system. And I always wanted to go back to law school. In fact, I've talked about it with my children for decades. I thought I would go back to Notre Dame Law School and become an attorney when I retired. And fortunately, God played a significant role in my education and thought process. And I decided to study on my own and learn what the real law of America is, and what the lost art of law is, and was fortunate enough to come across many different people during.
Howard Cook was on last week, and she's part of your group, and I just love her. She is an outstanding, inspiring woman.
And she is one of so many in our group. It's amazing, the group that Dave Jose and Jaron Jackson and I could name literally 100 of us that have moved the country in a way that educates and teaches all of us, what we have to do. And it was interesting listening to your show with both Ralph and Karen prior. And I do believe that the more knowledge we have, and the more we have a broad distribution of that knowledge, which is what my teacher, David Jose, teaches, we will be powerful. And we are powerful. I mean, it's amazing how much the country has begun to change and shift to the fundamental common law, which is still the law of the land. And we now have a Supreme Court that has not only validated it, but is educating and pushing it. We just need to get to the rest of the country so that we understand what our rights are. We understand the difference between rights and privileges and public versus private. And we'll obviously go into some of those things. But
well, you're in charge of the show today, so you tell me where you want to go, and I'm just a facilitator. So please educate us. All
right. Well, and obviously this is my first time doing anything publicly, so I want you to make sure that you guide me, and feel free to
you know
ask.
what? This is the difference between Brandenburg News Network. When I created this, it was because I was absolutely censored off of everything during my governor's run. A tax censored, can't have Brandenburg there. She might actually tell the truth, right? So when I created BNN, it was to have a censorship-free platform. And really, it's all live. We don't plan on, I have no idea what you're going to talk about today or we're going to go with this. I think that's the way that we need to return as a country, is to just sit back and have discussions over coffee type of a vibe, where you share what you know, I share what I know. The people that are out there can jump on any of the chats and I'll read their comments and that sort of thing. And if people want to call in, I'd even open up the line here to call in if they would like to, and have their voices be heard, so that we can come together as a group of Americans who want to have this constitutional republic restored.
Amen. Amen.
Under God. Got to add that, under God.
Exactly. And we need to learn that the only person we need to fear in America, fortunately, is not our government. It is our God. And the sooner we learn that and become comfortable in standing up on our rights, you will no longer fear government. I am probably a true patriot, where I've taken steps where I need to create some conflict with my government so that I can educate, other people. And I am educating other people. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I have hundreds of first cousins that are living, around there. Some of us have moved to other parts of the country. I now live in Georgia. But it doesn't make any difference where you live in America. We are all free, but the truth of knowledge has been hidden from us for, over a century. And we took it out of the schools. I grew up learning separation of church and state. You can't have, your church and your state combined. Well, We have 51 constitutions in America, and 48 of those 51 tell you right in the preamble, which most people have never read, in God. I mean, we get our rights through God. We do not get our rights from man. And it was interesting listening to your conversation before I came on. You were talking a lot about statutes and codes and bills and acts that our government is presenting and putting people in. When you understand that we get our rights from God, those bills and acts have nothing to do with us as we the people. The only reason they have control over most of us is because we have tacitly acquiesced to their tyranny. And we need to learn the difference between operating in the public and operating in the private. And most of us live very private lives, but we commit to our government that we will live a public life. And I did that when I received my license as a chartered financial analyst. I did that when I received my license as a Series 7 rep. And I did that when I went to the DMV and received my license to drive a car. I mean,
could you go back just a second, because the feed cut out just for a minute, which it's probably going to, because we're talking about controversial things. And we get hacked all the time, which is kind of fun.
Agree more.
It doesn't last, but it's like they're just letting us know, hey, we're out here. Well, guess what? We're out here too. We're not going away.
Correct. It is letting our government know we are out here. We do not fear government. We can't fear government. The internet has provided us a major platform, which wasn't open to us recently. I mean, unless you operated on Telegram or Signal or Rumble, Truth Social, or one of the other platforms, you couldn't in the public, talk like you and I are talking right now. Now we have X and we have other platforms that we can use to get our message and our word out. And through Dave Jose and Jaron Jackson and We the People Notices, which is a website that you can go on and get lots of information, wethepeoplenotices.org. And that's what we do. We prepare notices and affidavits, because I don't wait for elections. Elections are somewhat of a hoax the way they are currently operated. And so are political parties. I used to be a huge, Republican supporter, but that is not my focus. My focus now is holding our government officials. I don't care what party you're in. I care that you follow the Constitution and you do what the Constitution, when you go back in history and understand the constitutions are social compacts. And those social compacts create a contract between our elected officials and we the people. The problem most of us have is that they have taken those social compacts and they've actually attempted to put us inside the trust. And rather than be the trust beneficiaries, we are actually servants inside the trust. And they have distorted the truth of knowledge. And it really starts with the American Bar Association. And we've had some very, very powerful actions taken by our Senate and our executive branch, as well as the Supreme Court, that have sent notices to the American Bar Association and basically told them, get out of our lives, get out of our lives. The lawfare that they've created through not following the Constitution, what they are doing is legal in the structure that they have, but it's not constitutional. And there's a big difference between understanding what that means and understanding what it means to operate in the private and be left alone by your government, or operate in the public and be under their tyranny of commerce and control. it was interesting hearing you earlier talk about taxes, and taxes is a big issue with lots and lots of people.
There's almost none of them that are constitutionally allowable that we have right now. And one of the things that I let people know is we're at about an 85% tax rate. If you start adding up all the discretionary taxes and such, the Revolutionary War was fought over, to get the British out. When you go back to the time of the Revolution, they were fighting over a 2% tax. And now fast forward to now, we're at an 85% tax rate. And that doesn't include inflation. We're going backwards. That's a big issue that we're going to have to raise awareness of. I mean, everybody should be jumping on this and saying, hey guys, here, I'm going to actually put something up here that,
Well, Donna,
crazy.
let me divert just for a minute. I really don't want this to be the focus of our conversation, but
Sure.
my education brought me through another process, which is a statutory process. And again, statutes don't apply to we the people. Statutes and codes are put in place to manage our trustees so that our trustees do their constitutional job of protecting our rights. And you had Summer Cook on. We took the Constitution and the education of our rights out of the schools many decades ago. And we need to put it back in our education process. And Summer Cook is doing a phenomenal job of doing that and creating the tools that educate our kids. But I learned, my very first connection with, there's many different groups, states nationals, obviously we've been associated with sovereign citizens. Those are a hoax. I mean, that's an oxymoron. Those terms don't even correspond to each other. But the very first thing I did, obviously coming from finance, was become educated on the IRS Tax Code. And our federal government can only charge two different taxes constitutionally. They can charge a direct tax, which is basically everyone for war, and it has to be done by a census, and it has to be done on a per capita basis. It's a per head basis, and I don't care whether I make $1 million or I make 50,000. We all pay the same amount. That's what's called a direct tax. And I'll let you know that our country has never had a direct tax ever in our history. The second one is an indirect tax. Those are duties, imports, and excise. And that's kind of what Donald Trump is attempting to do now, is fund our government through indirect taxes. In Morris versus the United States, which was a decision that was just decided by our Supreme Court last June, it clearly stated that the income tax in America is an indirect excise tax. That's a privilege, not a right. The government has no right to charge us a direct tax, and a indirect tax is a privilege. So therefore, when the original IRS code was put into place over 100 years ago, it went to the Supreme Court and they shot it down. So they ended up putting in something that you've probably never heard of and never will from anyone. And it's called a revocation of election. It is the most powerful thing in America. Our parents opted us into paying these tyranny taxes, and you've got the right to revocate anytime you choose, once you understand that you have rights and not privileges. But that's not really where I wanted to take our conversation today. But
we can come back and revisit this again, because I do think that this is a fundamental basis of education and taking the nation back, is that we've got to know what we're supposed to know about the United States. I mean, that's kind of a convoluted way to say it, but we've got to know what they've hidden from us.
Well, I can show you another website that people can go to and learn what a revocation of election is and what it means. You can go to it at weissparis.com. That website has been around for decades.
What is it?
Adele Weiss. Excuse me?
Can you spell the address and I'll put it in?
WEISS Paris, PARIS. And that Adele Weiss, who basically created that entity, unfortunately he's deceased, but a brilliant man, and he lays out exactly that's it. Now, if you go down a little bit on that page, you'll see revocation of election right there. Click on that. Nope, go up a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
Revocation of election. Click on that, go down a little bit, and click on here, and you can watch a video right there. What says watch the video, up a little bit, right there.
It takes me a little bit. There's always a lag time when we're here.
Yeah.
So.
And I advise people to learn from that. That is a statutory process. And that's truly not what I've come here to talk about, but it is an education of what, the tyranny is. And Morris versus USA, which again was decided last year, is a case which identifies, our our federal income tax program, and it identifies it as an indirect excise tax. And an indirect excise tax is a privilege granted to foreigners that come here into America and choose to participate in our society, and they will pay tax on their income. But our Constitution and our constitutions in America have removed the knowledge and understanding that we have the rights to the fruits of our labor. That's God gave us dominion over the land, the air, and the sea. And that dominion gives us the rights in America because of what you mentioned earlier with the Stamp Act and the tyranny that was put on the Stamp Act, which led to the Boston Tea Party. We have lost teaching our students and our children the history of America and the tyranny that we were under and why they did what they did. And they flipped the paradigm and they made us the kings and queens. And now you have a Supreme Court Justice, Judge Gorsuch, which wrote a book last year called Overruled. I highly recommend people read that book and understand. But the Supreme Court can only do one thing: interpret the law. The law of the land is our fundamental common law. It's not statutory law. It's not rules of criminal and civil procedure. They want you to be in their jurisdiction, so they created these rules of civil and criminal procedure, but that's not the law of the land. And once you understand the law of the land and you understand maxims of law, which begin with courts of record, and we don't really even understand what courts of record are because, and I have next to my desk here, because I look at this every day, 100 times a day, Black's Law 4th edition. I have Black's Law 1st. I have the 4th, the 5th, the 11th. And they changed the definitions over time so that our Constitution has been minimalized and we don't teach it even in law school. If you go back to the 1960s, Harvard University, which graduates lots of lawyers, unfortunately took the teaching of the constitutions out of their schools and went to teaching procedural law. Just by definition, procedural law is not fundamental common law, and it's not how courts in America are supposed to operate. You have a Supreme Court Justice, Judge Gorsuch, who has been interviewed numerous times now and who is trying to educate the people. Because as long as you acquiesce to their Article 1 unconstitutional courts, then they have total dominion over you. They have total dominion over, whether you're going to win or lose a lawsuit, and they can change the rules on a daily basis. And Judge Gorsuch communicates that to us very clearly. And we need these conflicts with our government so that we can educate we the people so that they begin to stand on their God-given rights, not the rights or not the privileges that our government has swapped your rights for privileges, and then they want you to tacitly acquiesce to their control. Operate in the private, operate and learn the law and learn it from, I don't know any other place in the country to truly learn it other than on your own through God or David Jose, Jaron Jackson. There's a tremendous amount of free information on their sites. You can go to Rumble. You can begin to understand what a grand jury is, why we have demanded from the Supreme Court and our executive branch that they give us control of the grand juries back. Last night, Dave Jose did a almost 4-hour Spaces, and it's on X. It's a wonderful thing for people to listen to. In the middle of that Spaces, Jaron Jackson goes through about an hour explanation of exactly what I'm talking about and exactly the tyranny that they've put us under. But the minute you know and understand your rights, the freedom that you will gain and the knowledge and wisdom that you can get from that space, as well as many, many, many others. I mean, you're showing it now. I mean, David is the best law teacher in America. And many years ago, or when I say many, 3 to 5 years ago, many lawyers would come on the site and debate Dave. And now we want lawyers and attorneys and judges to come on the site and debate, and they refuse because they don't know the law. They've never been taught the law. It's not their fault, but our group is meant to educate them on the law. Judges, attorneys, our legislators understand the separation of powers. We don't have separation of powers in our courtrooms now. And until we go back to having those separation of powers and understanding what a court of record is versus a court of equity, it's significantly different. A court of record is my court as one of we the people. I go in as sui juris. I demand that judge respect my position. And my court of record is not that judge. In fact, in a court of record, a jury of my peers is what determines the law. They determine the law and the facts. They have perverted the definition of court to the people, and they've converted it to courts of equity, which basically give the judge the ability to decide the law and the jury the ability to decide the facts. That's not how our system is meant to set up.
And if you look at something, I'm going to interject this just for a second. If you look at what's happening specifically in the state of Michigan, because I do happen to know this, 98% of the judgments or the cases that get a judgment in Michigan is a judgment for money. And the reason is they take 18% of that.
They do.
And it goes into the retirement accounts and such. So I don't understand
they're private entities.
They're private entities.
They're private entities. It's a matter of educating. We could spend, a week literally talking about that. Again, my goal is to give some basic fundamentals on your show to start with, because an hour is obviously not nearly enough.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? If you're open to this, how about if we start this and do this on we can do it on a weekly basis or something. I give you a time slot, because the nice thing about owning everything here is that I can do whatever I want. I turn the cameras on, and if we want to do a panel from all of our buddies that that are doing these notices, I find this to be of fundamental importance, because we have been so lied to, and it's going to take a while. We can't even trust the history that they've been pushing into our heads, because everything has been an illusion. Everything. So I mean, whatever you want to do, we can have you come back on. We can have a panel from the group come back on. We can have Dave come back on. Whatever you would like that I can be helpful in this situation. This is Donna here to help. And I think we could make it be something that people can count on and increase it. Because we go out on not only Brandenburg News Network, we're out on 11 different venues to get our word out there, because I'm just bullheaded enough to put it out there so that it can't be taken down. So,
and Donna, that's powerful. It's powerful.
What's really funny is that when you get knocked down, when they come after you, that means you're over the target. And I was so censored and knocked down. We were getting hacked. So I own a little tech company. We were getting hacked. We can go ahead and trace everything and see where they're coming from and such, which is kind of fun, actually.
It is.
I warned everybody. I'm like, you come after us, you're going to be playing whack-a-mole with about 100,000 little Donna Brandenburgs. Make my day. And so they got to the point. So we just threw a warning shot across the bow, and we put up two Tor nodes on the dark web, and then we also jumped on a blockchain. So guess what? This is like forever, people.
And that's powerful. And God is so good. He's giving us the tools that are allowing us to do what we're doing right here now, and they can't stop us, whereas they could 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago,
I can help people. I can help people. That doesn't mean I have the knowledge of anything, or that, everyone is always smarter than us on a subject or several subjects. We may have things that we're an expert in, but that doesn't mean we're an expert on everything. The strength of what we do is when we all stand together and stand in those things that we have a passion for, that we know, and then we become really strong. So I'm here to help anybody get a voice. I do it for free. And so you tell me what you want to do and what I can help you and your group do, and I'm your girl.
I would love to do that, because we do need a voice. We need a bigger voice. We need to educate we the people. And I am more than happy to do it weekly, so that we can, get and promote our voice, because the tyranny is so broad-based, and we need to go back for over a century, and put ourselves in a position where we understand these are our servants. We elect servants. We do not elect kings. Kings went out when we went away from the British crown, and they have a king. They still have a king, and that king gets to take his court and move it wherever he goes. Well, in America, when you understand what a court of record is, and you go back to Black Law's 4th edition, and you look at court of record, my court of record literally is when I walk into that judge and I put my affidavit under oath or affirmation, I sign it under the penalty of perjury. That is my court. It's the papers. It's not the judge. It's not the 4 walls. It's not the flag. It's not the state national's interpretation of the court. It is my papers. And that oath or affirmation that we do through Dave, Jose, and Jaron's group is we educate people on what that means. And I will have sent that judge in advance notices to educate him on what the law is and what he swore an oath to. He swore an oath to uphold my Constitution, and he swore an oath to uphold a Republican form of government, whether you're in the federal court or the state court. We are guaranteed a Republican form of government. People aren't even taught in schools anymore what the difference between a Republican form and a democracy is. And I am sick of hearing democracy come out of the mouths of everyone in Washington. You know why? They do live in a democracy. They live in a democracy, though. They have taken a dual oath, which is literally 180 degrees opposed to each other. That dual oath that they've taken, and our group just did a notice here in Georgia, because we've got a commissioner in Cobb County. We've got all commissioners in Cobb County that have taken this dual oath that's just ridiculous. When you listen to their oath to the Constitution is to protect my rights, and that's it. That's what they're responsible for doing. And they are not protecting my rights when they're not educating the people on what our rights are. Every government, every state government should provide to every single person, every citizen in their community, a copy of their state constitutions. You know, Georgia alone has 29 state rights listed in my rights. The federal constitution has 10. I want my Georgia constitution over, because the federal was created by the 13 states, the 13 colonies, and then expanded to the rest of the states. I get to use every single state, and Texas has some better ones. Vermont has some good ones. Arizona. I mean, I get to use them all because I am sui juris. I am we the people. There are hundreds of rights that have been reserved from the Constitution. They're not even in the Constitution. They're excluded from the Constitution. But unless people know those rights and stand on those rights and let the government know you are infringing on my rights. But if we tacitly acquiesce and they put us into their democracy, which is what they love to call it because it is, and we go into their courtroom and we hire an attorney that is there to protect the democracy, because that's how 1.4 million attorneys in this country make a living, is creating this democracy under their rules of civil and criminal procedure. We have to learn. We need the wisdom from God to go back to the fundamental principles. And our founding fathers told us repeatedly, George Mason and Tocqueville and Jefferson, if we don't learn our fundamental principles, if we don't learn frequent recurrence to fundamental principles and the maxims of law, then we will be put into tyranny, which is exactly what's happened over 150 years. Obviously, they didn't have the internet back then. They didn't have the communication capabilities that we have. Now we do. Now people have become educated. They can't do away with us. I tell people we're either a republic or we're a democracy. We're not both. They are totally opposed to each other. Democracies lead to socialism. Socialism leads to communism. And
it's mob rule.
It's mob rule.
It is the least stable form of government. And so, and to put it into personal terms for everyone, if you live in a pure democracy and everybody decides, okay, the majority, 51% decide, I don't like the color blue. We're going to outlaw blue because, and fill in the blank with every crazy social justice warrior nonsense that's out there that they could justify that with.
Correct.
You're done. You have no rights. The rights are as an individual. You have no rights whatsoever. And with the amount of programming that's out there, I was with some neurolinguistic programmers about a week and a half ago. They were very interesting to talk to, and several of them had worked in the Pentagon and that sort of thing. I'm going to tell you what, the amount of manipulation in the United States is scary. I was privileged to be there to be able to look at how they're doing it, to understand it so we can unravel this. You have a democracy with the amount of manipulation going on. They're going to take that head and turn it of the public any way they want. It would lead to absolute, sudden, and predictably unavoidable disaster. A republic is when you have a representative that represents your rights. And this is where the parties fall down. The parties fall down with this partisan nonsense and say, oh, I got to vote with Republicans. I got to vote for Democrats. Well, you know what? That's That's absolute tyranny right there. And the fact that a representative needs to represent all people.
All
The
people.
governor in a republic represents all people, not just ones that we agree with. And our obligation as Americans is to defend the rights of those people that we disagree with as passionately as we defend the rights of those who we agree with, because we have to have that accomplished first, or we have nothing.
In fact, it's more important to represent
I
the
agree.
voice of the minorities and
I
of
agree.
the few, because, you know, whether people like it or not, and I truly don't care whether you're Muslim or atheist or whatever religion you are. I am in the Church of Christ. I follow the King James Version of the Bible, and so did, thank goodness, our founding fathers. And when our founding fathers created the constitutions, and they understood that those rights came from God, not man, and they understood, and they gave us the constitutions, and people will say, attorneys especially, oh, we didn't sign the Constitution, we can't stand on those rights. Go read it. Go read the state constitutions. I get to stand on those rights forever, and so do my posterity. I have been given liberty interest. I've been given, you know, even fundamentally, the right to own property. You know, they've taken it away from us in the last 100 years. What is a warranted deed?
It's gotten beastly too, especially in the last month. I mean, this is a crazy. It's parasitic.
But their goal that they started many decades many decades ago is literally to get to the point where everybody is in the democracy, because you're allowed. One of the rights that we were granted in our Constitution is the right to contract. So what do they get us to do repeatedly? When you sign your 1040 every year, when you sign your driver's license every year or every 3 years, whatever it is in your state, when you sign your W-4, when you sign your 1099s, you are signing an oath or affirmation under penalty of perjury that you are a non-resident alien in their corporation. And again, it's irrelevant because it's not a true contract, because it doesn't stand up to the 8, functions of a contract. And that's a whole nother segment that we can do. But what it is their ability to get you from sui juris, from one of we the people, into the trust. Because once you're in the trust, they can make you a servant of theirs. And once you're in the trust, then you must follow statutes and codes by tacit acquiescence. Once you understand that difference between operating in the public and operating in the private, which Dave Jose does a phenomenal job. He has a free session to go to and understand the difference between public versus private. When you begin to understand that you operate in the private anytime, unless you're working for the government and you're only operating in the private or the public to protect my rights, all the rest of the time you're in the private. They put you in the public 100% of the time. And when you're in the public 100% of the time, then you're under contract with them. And that contract that you're under with them removes your rights from you. And you have to understand the only way you have constitutional rights is if you know how to stand on them, which means you have to learn them. What does a right mean? A right is a power of free action. And the only way we can be free is by understanding our rights. And there are many of them. And once we stand on those rights, every judge in America, every court in America, I mean, we filed over 52 million lawsuits, not counting speeding tickets and traffic ticket violations. That's another 50 million. We filed 52 million lawsuits in this country in 2023. I don't know what the number was last year, but I know that number because it's in Judge Gorsuch's book, Overruled. And when you look at that many lawsuits, and not a single one will be argued on the constitutional grounds of jurisdiction of someone's ability to sue another individual. Not a
It's
single
absurd.
one
This
will
the
have,
whole thing is absurd.
it's absurd, but not a
It's
single
absurd.
one. It even comes to court. They're not real courts. So therefore, not a single attorney will sign an oath, an affidavit, or have their client sign an affidavit that represents a court of record. They want you to be in a court of equity. That way it's their rules. That way they get to choose what rules and statutes they apply to you. And most people have never heard this. I never heard this. I have been involved in lots of lawsuits over the past 40 years. And I learned the same way Dave Jose's learned. I learned through the tyranny of our government coming down on some of the businesses and things I was involved in. And when I look at the people that have written books like David Straight and David Wynn Miller and other people, almost every one of them, without exception, which is amazing, started their process because the government took their kids. And the CPAC and CPS in this country is such tyranny. And they don't have the right to take your kids unless you tacitly acquiesce to their rules of procedure.
Biggest human trafficking organization in North America, probably the world, is CPS.
And do you understand how much money they make every year through the court system?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They make over $500 million a year. And you know where that money's going? I mean, I love watching Elon Musk interview with Joe Rogan, but he said one thing that was profound. I don't care what the government wants to do with me, but Joe Rogan, in that interview with Elon Musk, he said, I can't tell you the full truth because if I do, I may not make it back to my airplane. I mean, it's unbelievable, the tyranny that Washington and our legislators have put us under. Most of them are not bad people, but most of them don't know the law. Most of them they take an oath to the constitutions, and they take an oath to the federal constitution to uphold our Republican form of government in the states. And yet they don't do it because they don't know any better. They don't even understand what that means. So we have to educate. And again, an hour is nowhere near long enough for us. I look at the time and I've been watching it because there's a lot I want to say.
Well, you can keep it going a little longer. That's fine. I mean,
right.
That's fine. But, you're giving them a bigger pass than I'm giving them right now because I realize that there's a lot of people who have been blackmailed, who have been threatened and coerced, who have had horrible things that have happened to them and horrible. Horrible. There's a lot of good people.
J6ers.
What's that?
Horrible. The J6ers. Horrible.
Yeah. It's horrible. And people that were behind that, who created that and all, but you have to stand up before God and do the right thing, even if you are threatened or coerced.
But what's the first thing you do when you're threatened, Donna?
I go right to fight. That's what I do.
What do Americans do? What is the very first thing they do when they get a lawsuit served on their doorstep?
I have no idea because I can't relate. I can honestly say that.
I can tell you 99.9% of the time, the very first thing they do is try to find an attorney either through a friend or the Yellow Pages. I mean, that's the very first thing they do. And I'm showing my age by saying Yellow Pages through the internet. That's the very first thing they do. But do you understand by doing that, they also immediately, by hiring that attorney from the American Bar Association or another law association, because the American Bar is the biggest. But what they have done is they've constitutionally swapped their rights for privileges, because that attorney will never, ever go into that courtroom and represent them on their constitutional grounds of their rights. They are going in there to fight based upon motions, based upon prayers to the court, petitions that have nothing to do with their fundamental rights. The very first thing that every judge in America should do, if it were a true Article 3 court in America, the very first thing that judge should do is look at that individual. Is that individual a living person? I mean, he is a living being. He is. And he has constitutional rights. In America, they look at you as, their dead vessel because you've tacitly acquiesced to agree to, not stand on your rights. You're going to stand on the statutes and codes that they've come after you with. And that fundamental difference, that just basic fundamental difference is profound. And once you understand it, and again, I've taken Dave Jose's law classes, they're unbelievable. They take a lot of hours. I mean, he probably has 1,000 hours of videos, and that's a lot for people to absorb.
When you say law classes, does he have a class that he sells?
He does.
Or he does have a class. What is the, you've got the Rumble videos, but what is his?
When you go to any of his Rumble videos, you can click on the links, especially his newer ones. He has a stand store, which you can go in and buy individual classes, or you can go in and buy his law bundle. And it's, for many people in America, it's the best money. And quite frankly, every attorney in America, I mean, is about ready to lose a big portion of their income. In fact, last night's session was on a letter that was sent from the Department of Justice, and it was sent from, I'm
looking for it on one of the videos. There's one that says restoremyrepublic.com. Is that it?
You can go there. It's in his stand store. I'm
totally lost here. It's not coming up on this Rumble video. So somebody help me out here a little bit. Put in the comments somewhere, and so I can see exactly where to find this.
I apologize.
Hey, Craig, how are you? Craig says you can buy a membership. Help me out there, Craig. I know you're watching, so help me out. And if you can throw a link out there on Facebook, I'll grab that link or put it in the chat, or somebody put it in the chat somewhere, and I'll try to put that out there. I've just got restoremyrepublic.com. That has it. Okay. Well, we're going to work on this a little bit.
Good. Craig should be able to get it for us. So,
okay, Craig, help me out here. You can get it to me one way or the other, or if you've got something, you could put it in the private chat there, Greg, too. So
I don't have it available, and I hate to do something during our chat, or I might lose you.
Oh, yeah, I get that. So we'll put it out there, and I'll put it on my Telegram channel. I did put that previous video up there on my Telegram channel, which is at Brandenburg, the number 4. I'll put it out there. So I think that this could be a really, I would love to see something that is laid out as, as you said, as a course, so you can go step by step and really learn. You can really learn things, because watching unrelated videos is not enough to actually know a subject. You've really got to get in there, and as you said, put the time in and do it in a systematic way, because it's just like you don't jump into calculus if you haven't gone through previous classes and started in kindergarten or first grade knowing the basics.
And that's what you really need to go back, because Dave does start at the very basic. And it really starts, if you watch his public versus private, which he's made free to the entire country, start with that one. It will lead you to all the rest of his law classes if you choose.
The private ones, or the
public versus private.
Go to the public one, correct?
And Craig just put it in the chat. So
okay, here we go. Now we're talking.
And when you go there, you can click on his public versus private. It is a free video. And that video alone will send you a long way to understanding what your rights are and where they exist.
See, this is how we do it, guys. We do everything on the fly here. That's the most
And so does Dave. So when you go through his videos, you'll understand, because there's a lot of situations where they've cut out his voice and they've tried to put their foot on top of us to keep the truth hidden as it's been for a long time.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. So you know what I'm going to do today? We're going to be binge watching.
There's another website that I would encourage people to join. Again, this one is only $11 a month, but Jaron is an awesome student as well as teacher. livinglocal.church. And when you join that church, it's for people that want to learn the process and what to do with and in our organization so that you can teach your local group. I'm part of a Bible study here in St. Simon in Georgia, and it's a wonderful Bible study group, and it helps guide me on how to relate the Bible with God's word and the constitutions. And it's powerful. And
where is that?
livinglocal.church.
Okay, let's see what I can do here.
And as you're doing that, I just want to mention the last night.
I'll post them later.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I'll post them later.
Okay. And that's for everybody that's watching as well, because it's a wonderful group for people to join. But last night's Spaces was powerful, and it's obviously fairly long, but David does these Spaces. We do a regular one on Thursday evening, but the Spaces are meant for people to join, share their testimony, share what they're going through, share what's going on, currently in our government. And we just got a Department of Justice letter that was dated April the 9th. And that letter went from the Department of Justice to the American Bar Association. And it's probably one of the most powerful letters from Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is Donald Trump's personal attorney. And that letter basically told everyone in the Department of Justice. Now, remember, these are all attorneys. Everyone in the Department of Justice, for the most part, is an administrator or an attorney. And even a lot of the administrators are attorneys. He told everyone in the Department of Justice, you are no longer permitted while you are employed to do anything with the American Bar Association. How powerful is that?
That's very powerful.
You cannot go and present as a government employee to the Bar Association. And why are they doing that? Because they've perverted the law. They've perverted the rights of the people. And
this is going to be really interesting. I just figured another way we were talking on how to apply that. I'm kind of excited that you brought it up.
Well, and let me mention one other letter that you should research and look at. There was a March the 7th letter that came from the Senate Judiciary Committee, signed by 9 attorneys and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which oversees and controls our court system. They sent a letter to the American Bar Association that everyone should read. That letter basically told the American Bar Association president, because it was sent directly to him, that you're no longer welcome in the Senate, and no one in the Senate needs to listen to the American Bar based upon your actions. And they cite their actions over the past, 8 years when Trump was in office. But when you read it and you look at the footnotes, because there's many footnotes, you've got to go through those footnotes and look. they've perverted the law. They've perverted the law so bad, and they've made us all think and understand that we are subject to their statutes and codes. When you understand that you operate in the private and you take their statutes and codes out of your equation, how does a police officer pull you over when you're operating in the private and you're not harming anyone and give you a ticket for going through a stop sign where you've harmed no one? There's no affidavit signed. It's because you've tacitly acquiesced to that officer having control over you. And our society would be so much better if we treated people with love and admiration and we helped our neighbors. That doesn't mean, there's going to be bad actors. There's going to be people that commit tyranny and commit crimes and felonies. But we've created tens of thousands of felonies in our federal government by statute. And those apply to our servants, not to us, we the people. That's
the way they've done it. Isn't it true that each one of us commits 3 felonies a day because the pretended legislation that they have written is only about harassment?
It's about harassment, and Judge Gorsuch makes it clear.
They can signal us out for harassment, and that's it. That is absolutely, it's a terror technique, and that's what they've done. Our government,
That is correct.
Our government is a terrorist organization.
Our government.
I'm gonna go there. So,
Yeah, and remember,
all the way to the end.
My goal is not to get rid of all attorneys and judges and our government. My goal is to educate them in the love and peace of Jesus Christ. And when we educate them in the love and peace, and then they continue to violate our rights, then they're committing treason. But until we educate them, you can't hold someone accountable for something. By the way, social compacts in governments have an unwritten, basically, rule that if we tacitly acquiesce, we've accepted it. We've accepted the tyranny of our government. But if we educate them and then they continue to commit their transgressions, then they violated our rights. And that is treason. And our founding fathers, what is worse than murder in this country? There's not much other than treason against a king or a queen. Judge Gorsuch says we are the only sovereigns in America. Our government is not sovereign. We are the only sovereigns in America. And we need to understand that, right? And it's also a responsibility. And the biggest responsibility we have is to notice and educate our servants. And we haven't done that for 150 years. Our founding fathers and the people back then lived in tyranny. They knew how to educate their servants. This is the way we get redress of grievance in our Constitution, which is a constitutional right. And we wrote a notice several months ago to the Supreme Court and to the executive branch and to Pam Bondi. And in that notice, we demanded to get control of our grand juries, because the only way we can go after these bad actors, once we put them on notice, remember that affidavit is a court of record. And the minute I send that oath or affirmation and they have not rebutted it, they can't go back later and rebut it. The attorneys tell them to throw it in the trash or don't take service. The problem is they're my servants and they've taken an oath to the Constitution, and I've got the right to notice them. And if I just notice their secretary and I've got a green card that shows that they've received it in their office, they've agreed to it, whether they've read it or not. It doesn't matter. If they don't want to know the law from the people, that's what they were put in office to do, is to know the law of the people and know what the people are telling them. And when they want to violate that because they operate in their own democracy, in their own private corporations. I used to hear the deep state for 30 years in business. I thought the deep state was the military industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, was all these other groups that we funded. Well, you know what? I didn't realize it's our entire government. But it's because we literally, by tacit acquiescence, have succumbed and let them become the tyranny that they are in America. And once we take our country back, which Donald Trump says will be the golden age, and it will be. You know why? Because 90% of what they've done over the last 100 years is not made America better. I mean, we have literally transferred our wealth from the middle class to NGOs to our government officials. And they've done it under it wide out in the open. They do it in our faces. They tell us exactly what they're doing. I mean, Stacey Abrams getting $2 billion in an NGO in order to educate people on how to make, efficient, house items. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That's not what a republic is. I've got, Procter and Gamble and many other companies that are making things for my house. I don't need our government involved in that at all. But she got $2 billion and she doesn't have to answer to anybody on where that money goes. If she's doing anything, she's committing treason against the people.
Sure is.
Punishable worse than murder because it's against the people. But if we don't have way to get that redress of grievance to her, then we need to demand that from our government, because we've sent lots of notices, millions of them, to our government. They've received them. They know the law now. They know what we've educated them. Thanks to Dave Jose and Jaron and many other people. I mean, Diane McCowan runs our We the People Notices group, and Dwight Stahl, and they're
call out the people that are involved in that so that people they get some acknowledgement, because there are so many people working behind the scenes in so many different areas of the United States, and they're really unsung heroes who don't do it for payment. They do it for the love of God, family, and country. Who else can you name that has been helpful? Because I think it's great. I'd like to know all of them.
You have one in our chat, and it's Craig Schneider, and Craig is a wonderful. He's a beast when it comes to the law. He knows the law, and I hate naming too many people because then I know I'm going to leave people out, and I don't want anyone. I mean, we have some amazing people. Again, I didn't get their permission to name them, and people can join and they can listen to our calls and learn the law. We want them to learn the law. We want them to learn and stand on their rights. And we want them to learn how to do a notice and affidavit, which we all should know how to do. Everyone, we should be teaching it in our schools. I mean, and that's where Summer Cook comes in. So, again, you can join and see all the people that have a voice on any one of Dave Jose's or Jaron's calls, because they show you the people. We're not here to hide our message. We're here to educate people and educate our servants on what the law is and stop what they're doing, stop the tyranny that they put many people under. I don't know the pain of losing my children. I didn't lose my children to the law. So I believe that there's nothing worse in life than someone having their children taken from them. And we have hundreds of thousands of children that have been taken from families unlawfully, unjust, and unconstitutionally. We need to make that right as a nation. And our nation is built right now under the theft of NGOs and Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid that is happening. And Doge is reporting it. But, again, there's so much information for so many people. It's tough to follow all of it, but I can assure you the amount of money that's stolen from Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid is unbelievable. And it will make this country go through a golden age once we just start understanding these are state functions, not federal functions. Our founding fathers wanted local government, not national. They didn't want centralized medicine. They wanted local medicine. What happens in Georgia is completely different than what happens in Arizona. And they wanted localized. we don't want centralized government. Centralized government leads to the tyranny that we have today, where they have over 50% of almost our entire economy goes through the government. I mean, companies like Facebook and or Meta that take hundreds of billions of dollars. People like the American Bar Association that's taken trillions from our coffers in order to create this system and go against the people, but yet they're making all this money from the people's money. I mean, I don't feel bad about educating people on a revocation of election and knowing your rights and getting the tyranny out of our people. I mean, we need that education, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it is going to happen. So I look forward to, many future conversations with you, because I could go on for days or weeks or months, which my family will tell you is not always healthy.
Well, I tell you what, I think that's one of the reasons why I do long interviews, is because people are not given enough chance to actually express themselves and get the information out there past headlines. Headlines are highly misleading unless you know what comes before that and after. It's sort of like reading the Bible. People like to pull verses out of context.
Amen.
When in fact you should read the chapter before and the chapter after to see what was actually being discussed there, and then you've got a little bit better handle on it. Read the whole thing, and then you've got the best handle on it, and practice it every day. You're really making gain there. But I think it's important. So I would love to have you back on. There's a lot of people watching this live right now in several different. I'm seeing people in different directions. People can probably see a few here and a few there, but I'm getting to see the whole thing, which is fun. So just so that everybody knows, if you're working with Greg and David and Jaron, give me a call. You can get a hold of me pretty easily. I've always put my number out there, and Greg has it, and lots of people have it. If you're lost at all, you can always get a hold of these guys somehow. And I'm very, very accessible. I do in fact pick up my phone, and I do in fact answer the text messages. It's not something that I push off to other people. So, and I think that that's the other part of talking to people, is we have to talk directly to them, because right now what's happening is you got the people in office. They've got some 18-year-old page there that is basically running them what they're supposed to do from the corporations and their donors. And we don't even have access to these people. They're so compartmentalized, and this isn't the way it's supposed to work. So let's go ahead and push this thing forward into a real structure, so that you can come on and you can bring, other people can join you. We can have discussions. We can do that. I could even set up a channel on you, because everything is on our servers that we own, and they're redundant servers in lots of locations. So, good luck after you live finding them all. It's going to be quite a task, quite honestly. So, and the censorship too is not going to happen. If we have to do it all on the dark web, we're fully able to do that, and without getting into trouble. Let's put it that way. That's
I certainly appreciate
actual skill,
Yes, I do. And I appreciate, the education and the time that you've spent and continuing this process. It doesn't take a lot of people to move our country. And Dave Jose has proved that. Yeah, it's a movement. And there's lots of different people out there that are doing many different things, but what you will find in our group is we don't do anything that we can't show you. It's written in the law. And the law of this country is the fundamental common law, not statutory law. That's the law for corporations and companies, and that's the law that they can, adjudicate in their own world. But when it comes to we the people, it is the fundamental common law that God gave us, that's been around for thousands of years. And it starts with, this book right here. And unless you understand the maxims of law, and what the maxims of law are, I mean, you can buy this book online with Charles Weissman for, $20. It'll be the best $20 you ever spent, because when you start reading these maxims of law in any court case cannot be argued. They can't be argued. They can't be disputed by any judge. And when you put those in a case, in a court of record, a true court of record, think of how powerful that is for everyone in America to learn.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for spending your time here, and everybody who's watching and commenting and such. I really appreciate everyone so much. This is how we get her done as Americans. That's
It is how we get it done.
We're God first, and we're Americans second. So, and you know what? Americans are mutts. I love it. We've gotten kicked out of and come from every other country on the nation, and we have our own culture. We're our own people. We're our own identity as a nation, and we can't forget that. And we stand together for each other's individual rights. We're individuals. I mean, this is as they said, an experiment. Let's see if we can keep it. I think we've got enough motivation right now after seeing the failings of how it's been usurped by parasites, liars, cheats, and thieves, which
No question.
they're on their way out right now, which
No
is
question.
is a good thing. So I always end with a prayer. Would you like me to
Amen.
pray, or would you like to pray?
You can pray for us.
I can pray for us? Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us as a nation, as individuals. You are just an amazing friend to us. You provide for us. You go before us. And you know what? We're not asking for an easy path. We really aren't, because we learn so much from the difficulties and challenges that we encounter in life, no matter what it is, that we learn to draw closer to you. We learn to be more like you. We shed all of those things that are unnecessary, that are distraction, that lead us away from you, from love, from the way that you intended us to be. And we acknowledge with every part of our being, this is your sandbox, it's your world. And we are here as your children to learn from you. And you're such a great Father. We love you so much. And every day we see your presence around us. We see the miracles that you do around us every day, even the ones that we overlook. Eventually it becomes something that we do see when we turn to you and you open our eyes at the blessings that are continuously around us. We ask that you give us at the feet to walk whatever path it is that you lay before us, because we trust you. We don't even need to see the outcome. We don't need to know what the outcome is. We don't need to do any of that. We just need to go to the point where, you know what, you asked us to do something. We're your kids. We're going to step up. No questions asked. When you ask us to do things, knowing that you will carry us through any task that you give to us. Biggest one of all is just abiding in you, learning from you, sitting with you, praying with you, and having a relationship with you through our Savior, Jesus Christ, your only begotten precious Son that you gave up for us. We're just so thankful for everything you've done for us. We ask your favor be upon everyone who is fighting for your good and just purposes, that you would send healing to those people who are having problems, that you would send guidance, peace that passes understanding, and joy in the midst of a storm, that you would give us the strength and the courage to face all things come our way without any acknowledgement of fear whatsoever. Has no place here. And we choose to follow you. Thank you so much for being a great friend to us. And we want to be a friend to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
There you go. Okay, boys and girls, this is the part of the show where we go to, and that we're going to wind it up here, but we'll bring Greg back on and all of Greg's buddies out there that I see. So love all of you, and thank you for all you're doing. So here we go to, this is my 2022 rigged election, fraudulent election protest. Go to brandenburgforgovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceded rose ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I would like to have a discussion with Donald J. Trump, the rightful president of the United States, who was the rightful president of the United States in 2020 in cowboy boots. Let's see who wears it better. I got this.
Amen.
So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. You know what? It starts here, here, and here. mental toughness, the ability to look at things around us and not even let them phase us. You know, it's just like if you go through hard times and such, that can't touch you unless you choose to allow it to. Put your faith in God. I'm not going to say it's an easy path. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that he'll walk you right through things and you got nothing to be afraid of. And I think that, you know, we've talked about the whole cancer thing and everything else like that. You know, I was diagnosed with, so they said, incurable cancer years ago. Never phased me. And I was never sad for 1 minute.
Good for you.
You stay close to God, no matter what. You will see even those things that other people see as a detriment, as a blessing that God gifted us to, because he's teaching us how to be strong. He's teaching us how to get rid of the childish mindset and be like him. And that's the goal every single day. So with that said, I will be on tomorrow. I've kind of been working between people that are, let's just say, brokering some things from Canada to the United States. And one of my buddies there who has been involved in getting things, finding the right channel to get the information, say, to said person and other people, and up the chain to President Trump, is going to be on tomorrow. And I think we're going to enjoy the discussion tomorrow. So I encourage everyone to join tomorrow. He's going to be on at 10 o'clock. His name is David. And we're going to continue fighting this forward because, you know, I don't know about you, but it's kind of screwed up right now. And we have only two choices. We're either going to be part of the problem or we're going to be part of the solution. So let's make good choices with that. Stay on the line, Greg. And this is when the conversation gets real good, is when I stop the camera. I wish you were all here, but it is what it is. So join us tomorrow, and God bless you all. Have a great day.